this train in the dark tonight, but obviously we know that we are professionals. We already rescheduled this session. It was supposed to take place last week, as we know. And last week we had stage 6 of load shedding in our country in South Africa. And today, this afternoon, we are in stage 5. So yes, indeed, there are a couple of our, not couple, maybe many of our members and regulars will be affected, but we will continue. Obviously, we are recording it. We'll have the recording after this that we'll share, because it's unfair for our speaker. We had booked our speaker for last week. She's a very busy person, and we had to beg and reason and ask her to say, please, man, in South Africa, we are in a situation. And she graciously honored us, and we are so grateful for that. So we couldn't again really reschedule or postpone it. So I'm just saying that we understand in terms of attendance, and those who will be kicked out, coming in, out, and that's on. And also on my side, please, if I've got any hurdles, you will bear with me as I share this. So we are against a live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So we are so happy that we are continue with it. A special welcome to our members, to our regulars. I can see so many of you, so many doctors here and professors, and you are so welcome, and great leaders, obviously, and all sorts of different leaders that we have. People who always come here, and the reason why we always come here, because, you know, this platform, we always say, there is no way you'll attend it and you'll leave the same again. And there is no way you'll attend it and never want to come back again. It's so contagious. You attend it once, and then you'll definitely come back again. I see my brother there, Dr. Cleopas Sibanda, all the way from Swaziland. Dr. Sibanda has just joined us at Wild. So we are welcoming you, my brother, from Eswatini, and I'll be introducing our speaker shortly. And particular welcome as well, and special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. It's a safe space. It's a free session. People you see here are different leaders from government, from private sector, from scholars from different universities. But I mean, really, we always say this is a community of leaders, leaders talking to other leaders. We correct each other, we admonish each other, we encourage each other, we inspire each other, because leadership, it's as we always say here, that leadership, it's a journey. Leadership, it's not a destination. So you always rise and fall on leadership. It's very important that we sharpen each other as leaders. So tonight, without taking much time, because as I'm saying that with this load shedding stuff, we would really like to give our speaker the ample time so that she can empower us tonight. My sister, my precious sister, happened to be Advocate Precious, all the way from Gaborone in Botswana.
Good evening, colleagues. We seem to have lost Prof. Am I the only one?
I think he's gone. So he probably is going to come back. Maybe load shedding.
Okay, thanks.
Since our speaker, Advocate Precious Gondwe, is here, might we ask you to lead us in your introduction? Apologies for asking you to do your own introduction.
Thank you very much, Andre. This is going to be very interesting, but I like the fact that we all understand the dynamics around load shedding, and I think our African problems are common. So I will try as much as possible to introduce myself. But I noticed that Prof is back online, so I'm not sure if we should let him go ahead. Hello. Okay. I was hoping
Connecting.
Prof. Yes, Prof,
I'm
you're
so
back.
sorry, ladies and gentlemen. No, can you think?
Yes. Hello, I suppose I could go ahead. Please let me in the chat box if I'm audible enough. I know we lost Prof there. I think he's coming back on. But I think without any further ado, my name is Precious Gondwe. Precious Gondwe is an admitted attorney, a conveyancer, a notary public, and an arbitrator. I am domiciled or at least admitted within the jurisdiction of the Republic of Botswana, but I'm also a registered foreign solicitor with the Solicitor Regulatory Authority in the UK and Wales. I also am the founding partner and the CEO of Precious and Partners Legal. And well, I have done a few things. They say leadership is not really so much about age, but I think it's really about being a solution to the nations, or being a solution to whatever space you find yourself in. I think the last 2 years, I was named top 30 most influential attorney or lawyer in Africa, and a female law firm founder and partner. I have also received several other awards, including the Southern African Women in Leadership, where I made it top 5 back in 2020. I've done so many things, but I think that I can only attribute that to the fact that when there is embedded in us a conviction that the answers to leadership are embedded in us, we will all do our bit wherever we are to make our leadership great, and to ensure that we have, to a certain extent, have some sort of influence in the manner in which people relate with one another, in the manner in which we deal with issues within our areas of jurisdiction. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I see the hands. Let me also acknowledge really Prof. Majola for the opportunity to sort of unpack something that I am very passionate about, which is leadership. One of the famous things that Dr. Miles Munro said, he said that leaders can lead from the back. So leaders don't necessarily lead from the front. They can lead from anywhere else. You put them in the mud, they will emerge as leaders. You put them in the fire, they'll always emerge as leaders. You put them in the most uncomfortable situations, they will always find their way to swim, to run, to crawl, to move. That is what leadership is about. And you will agree with me that in leadership, there is no one definitive definition of who or what a leader is. So leadership to everyone could just mean something different. My personal conviction alone is that leadership entails us taking up, like I said, us taking up space wherever we find ourselves is in a bid to resolve issues, in a bid to be a voice, in a bid to try and unravel any particular situation that comes our way. So I don't want to take too much of your time in giving introductions. I am not sure if I should proceed with my presentation. If Andre can give me the go-ahead, I will then share my screen just to unpack what I have for you today. And I hope that that introduction was insightful enough for you to get an understanding of who I am. But you can also do search me on LinkedIn. My name's Precious Gondwe. I have a page as well on Facebook, Precious Gondwe. And that will give you a much more holistic overview of what I've been able to do and to achieve. And like Prof said, leadership is really a journey. No one hasn't figured it out, but we can all come together in forums and platforms such as this one and share. And my topic today simply is about innovative and inclusive leadership post-COVID-19. That is what my topic is about. I'd like to believe that I have been given the go-ahead to share my screen. So I hope you can confirm that my screen is visible. And I will simply begin. Thank you, Andre. I will start my presentation. So one has to obviously ask, what is innovation? I think that the Oxford Dictionary has a way of putting it across. It says, innovation is an idea. It could also be a product that features new methods that are advanced and original. And the Merriam-Webster dictionary says innovation could be a new idea, a new method, a new device that introduces something new. So in a nutshell, it is the introduction of new ideas as a result of creative thinking. So I got to see something that caught my eye last week, and I think I did share it somewhere. It was a meme, and it said, thinking is hard, isn't it? And that's why most people prefer judging or criticizing. Now that's food for thought, because most times we find the easier way out of criticizing other people's methods and styles of leadership. And in certain instances, when we don't understand where one leader is coming from, we tend to take a position that they don't know what they're doing, or sometimes we don't even get to ask, but why is it that you have taken this route, or you've taken this position in your leadership style? So we are undoubtedly in an era where there's just too much information about what leadership is. We have information everywhere, and without any further confusion, ladies and gentlemen, let me also unpack what the information age presents to us also as leaders. So whether we like it or not, we've moved from like the traditional way of, doing business, of leadership, of doing things, because as we speak, we are now based, our way of doing things is now based on information technology. So whether we like it or not, that has ushered in innovative and creative thinkers. So when we talk about innovation and creativity, one would ask, what does that even mean? I mean, look at the birth of Microsoft, the era of social media giants such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Zoom. which became very prevalent over the last 2 years. And just when we thought that that was enough, for some of you that have been following, we saw the birth of TikTok. So it goes without saying that we've all been thrust into new ways of living, into new ways of communicating, into even new ways of creative thinking. So we could also argue that almost everyone, or at least almost everything that's going on currently in the world, is more or less controlled by creative thinkers. I don't know what your take on that is, but I think that it goes without saying that creative thinkers such as the Mark Zuckerbergs who came up with Facebook have shaped the way we communicate. They have shaped the way we think. They've shaped even the way that we transact in business. They've also shaped the way we do business. I mean, look at us today connecting via platforms such as this one. It goes without saying that as long as we are in the information age, we will experience a lot of different creative thinking products. And so what do we do as leaders when there's so much going on, there's so much information, and we're not too sure how to navigate the space of leadership with so many leadership methods and styles that we find, on our social network, on our websites, on our podcasts, on YouTube. It goes without saying that there's just so much information. But the question is, are we allowing ourselves as leaders to be creative enough to bring about new methods that will influence our leadership style, that will influence the outcome of who we are supposed to be as leaders, that will also influence the people that are around us that we're leading? So the real question is, are we being innovative enough as leaders to think outside the box, to come up with different ways and means to run the show? Or are we continually adapting that which we've found to be useful, or that which we've been told could work for us? The real question is that we need to go back to the drawing board and discover what sort of means and ways they are that could shape the way in which those that we lead, conceive ideas, those that we lead become creative and innovative enough to birth new products and new services within the sphere of our leadership. Now, because this is not supposed to be a lecture, I hope that you guys are following, because it's been my observation that we've all of us been pushed into either becoming innovative or becoming consumers of other people's creative ideas. So we can choose as leaders whether to become consumers of information, whether to become consumers of platforms that have been created for us, or we can decide that in the process of us being thrust into the age of information, we can decide to take a position that says, can we also become more innovative and creative without necessarily just consuming information, being taught this is the leadership one-on-one tutorial, and I'm just gonna copy and paste and use it to lead a certain type of people. That's obviously not going to work, because people have more or less evolved. So as leaders, we need to come up with other creative ways and means to get those that we're leading or those that we're influencing into thinking outside the box, into thinking about products, methods, ideas that have not yet been unpacked. And for them to come to that place, we need to, as leaders, be alive to the fact that there's so much information, but we can decide to not just consume information, but also use that information to aid us in creative thinking. So what we have seen with creative thinking is the birth of the tech giants that I've already mentioned. And we've seen that automatically, by way of bringing up a new idea, a new philosophy, a new method of doing things, automatically you adopt an influencer, you adopt a leader, you adopt as the hero or the heroine of our times. So you don't necessarily have to get an award. I mean, I spoke about me getting an award earlier, but what I'm saying is that your award could simply be creative thinking that then gives birth to a product or a method or a certain style of leadership that the world has not tapped into. So the real question is, are you creative and innovative enough in your leadership style? I'll throw that back at you yet again. Another important thing is that what we've seen with the information age is that most of us become consumers of information without necessarily being the ones that create new information, create new products, bring about new ideas. So the problem that we were grappling with as leaders is that the information age has brought so much to us. But the question is, how much of what has been brought to us is useful in shaping our own leadership style? How much of that is useful in us taking that to the people that we're leading and helping them come up with newer, fresher, creative ways to problem solve, to run their businesses, to do their schoolwork, to do their research, to discover their purpose and probably hone some of the skills that they possess. So I want us to be critical about the information that we daily consume as leaders on social media, the information that we consume daily from the many books and authors every day, the much information that we have within our fingertips on the World Wide Web. The real question that we should be asking ourselves as leaders is, how much of that information are we putting into good use? And the real question is, would you rather be a consumer or a creative? Would you rather be a consumer leader or a creative leader? Because most of us have simply been consuming information that has been presented to us, but none of us has taken a step back to ask themselves, with all this information that I'm receiving, what am I creating? I will move on to my 7th slide. So we're now being challenged to not only become innovative, but also inclusive in our process. Now that we understand that there's too much information, now that we've got that information, the question is, are we getting ourselves creative enough to actually give birth to new ideas, to new products, to new methods, to new systems that we've not seen in place as leaders? So how do we merge creative thinking or innovation to include everyone else? Let us find out. So I want to define inclusivity. You know, Google as of today defines it as the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. In short, once you adopt the creative style of using information that you have, you must now turn to think, who can I include in my creative space that can benefit from that creativity? And it has to think outside the borders of just the male and the female within my vicinity. What inclusivity does, and what I've observed, is that it not only bridges the gap between those within our jurisdiction or those within our vicinity, but inclusivity means that idea, that creative juice must not only extend to the people that you know, but it must appeal to everyone that is within your sphere of influence. And I think this is the trick that Mark Zuckerberg could have actually employed, because look at Facebook as an example. Facebook is a platform that was created, free sign in. You can create an account at any given point. No one is going to ask you to pay. So the idea is anyone can be on Facebook. But the creative juices behind that sort of leadership says, the more people I can get onto Facebook, the more influence, which means everyone is going to be in that space. I can now begin as Mark to not only sell my marketing space within Facebook, I can now charge for advertising because everyone is there. I can allow for now businesses to come into that same creative space, and I in turn can monetize that creative idea that I have. So creativity, when it's brought together with innovation and inclusivity, it will bring about wealth creation. So true leadership says, I need to be creative about this. I need to be innovative about this, but I need to get as much people involved so that this thing can be beneficial. And by so doing, I can create wealth. So leaders must understand that leadership is not so much about appointment. It's more about creativity. It's more about thinking what you can do with information that you consume and then use it to monetize it. And that is what works for me. I don't know, you might agree, you might not agree, but I think the thinking in the information age is more on making sure that whatever product that you create that is unique and original, not only just benefits you, but in turn, you monetize it, and then you in turn empower everyone within your vicinity. So as a creative, you must ensure that in the process of producing a product or idea, it speaks and appeals to everyone. So I can tell you that if Mark had said, pay $1 to sign up, not every one of us would have been on Facebook. But the reason why every one of us is on Facebook at the moment is because it appears to be free, but is it really free? Who knows? And what we see as well with leaders in tech generally is that they will create even the cheapest device and ensure affordability. So in their creative space, they are also mindful to capture even the lowest income earner. So even the lowest income earner will make it into Facebook. So even the person in the most rural of areas will make sure they get the cheapest phone, and they make sure they subscribe such that they are at least on WhatsApp. So in creative leadership, you create a space that allows not just for the creative juices to flow, but you also become self-sufficient and you rope everyone in. And in turn, you monetize leadership. There's nothing wrong with being a leader that has got its money. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to be a leader that's moneyed, you know? So now, forgive me if I sounded too technical. I know it sounds more like I'm talking tech. I'm talking innovative leadership on just, you know, on the technical or technological side of things. But I think that creativity is something that can be applied in any sphere of influence. Every single day, we have to be creative in the morning when we make our breakfast. We have to be creative when we decide which route we have to take to work. We have to decide how we're going to spend the rest of the 8 hours at work every day. So creativity is something that is always at play. So the real question is, are we recycling what's already been there, or are we coming up with ways, different ways of thinking, different ways, different approaches, and deciding how we as leaders can influence our spheres of influence? And I think that we spend a lot of time doing the leadership one-on-one training courses than we actually do creating ideas or thinking about ideas of how best we can be as leaders. So we also need to get to be practical about these ideas that we have, because you cannot give birth to a new ideology. You cannot give birth to a new way of thinking or a new way of doing business if you don't take time to think and reflect on the information that you have consumed. So you have to decide to engage more in creativity and creative thinking rather than consuming information. Because when you've consumed information, even in class, we all consume information, but the decider is always at the end of the exam period when the results come out. Then you realize who used that information to benefit them the most. So we must, as leaders, decide to not only think about applying what we have learned, but also be creative, go the extra mile to create methods and different styles of doing things that will help us in the different sectors or spheres of influence that we find ourselves in. Because whether we like it or not, challenges faced by Botswana in Botswana may be similar to the challenges faced by South Africans across the border. But the manner in which challenges in Botswana will be unraveled or dealt with by its leaders would be different from the manner in which the South African people would also deal with their own. So it tells us that there's a need to also understand the environment that we're in order for us to bring about new methods, new products, new ideas that will help unravel or deal with situations and provide solutions in the different spheres of influence. And I think this is my humble submission that our universities and our research institutions, together with our basic education systems, really need to fast track the manner in which, we are taught. I can tell you, I look at some of the things that were taught, and sometimes I even wonder why we were taught, certain things, because in reality, some of it, we're not even applying it in the now. So we need to also understand that as leaders, we must influence and we must push the agenda of ensuring that the main educational systems come to that place where they realize they need to fast track the manner in which even the mode of teaching is being, administered or employed in our students. Because as long as we've been told this is the way and no other way, we will restrict the way in which our young people or even our future leaders think. Everyone will assume that the same old methods of doing things would still be applicable now. It goes without saying that Africa has been on a back foot for too long. We have struggled even to produce vaccines throughout COVID. We have struggled to even solve the smallest and the minutest of challenges throughout the COVID pandemic, because we have restricted our forms of leadership to what we've been taught, and we have not allowed ourselves to engage in more creative leadership, where a leader has to ask the question, who's affected? What is happening on the ground? Without simply taking that, for instance, how we would copy and paste the way we dealt with the pandemic in Africa. We simply had, they are isolating for 14 days, so that's how we're gonna do it here. A few countries even had the resources, or at least even the time, to come up with ideas on how to combat. The few that tried would immediately be discredited, not because they could not think beyond, but because they did not give themselves enough time to allow for creative leadership and to allow for new ideas to be birthed. Another important thing is really, like I said, to scrape off some of those, leadership or creativity methods that have not worked for us. If we are to become mere consumers of any information that we get or any leadership style that we get, we risk, being dependent on someone else's ideologies and not coming up with our own and allowing ourselves to test them and see if they would actually work within our parameters or spheres of influence. And so we also risk dwarfing and constricting those other people within our leadership space that could have otherwise emerged with solutions to the problems presented within our spheres of leadership. Now, I'm a lawyer by training, and one of the things I've enjoyed, and one of the books or writers or authors I've enjoyed reading is Malcolm Gladwell and The Outliers. You know, he likes to speak about, you know, being at the right place at the right time, thinking the right things. I'll add on to that. You know, you need to allow yourself to sort of take a step back as a creative thinker and give more yield to what you can also produce. So when you cease becoming a consumer, you also want to position yourself in such a manner that you can allow your creative juices to flow. How do you do that? After you consumed information, as I said earlier, you go back and think. Thinking is expensive. Thinking is the most difficult thing. But I think with the right tools, with the information that we have, we all need to go back and ask, where are we as leaders within this particular organization? Where are we as leaders within this group of people? What are our issues and what are our problems? What other creative ways can we employ in order to resolve some of our issues? I've already sort of defined who an innovator is, but the question is, in my context, who is an innovator? An innovator is a person like you and I who decides they will do the thinking in a unique way. I know it's very rare that we are told, go and think about it, and we actually do the thinking. So an innovator is anyone who chooses to become creative in their style of leadership. It is anyone who becomes deliberate about who they want to become, the leader they wish to become. My own observation is that creativity and innovation, you know, breeds about heroism. It goes without saying, once you create something that has never been created before, everyone will be clapping hands for you. Like Mandela, Nelson Mandela, he did something that others didn't do in their lifetime, and everyone was clapping for him. By virtue of him coming out and doing something that others had not done, he became a leader. He could have been a leader as a political party member, but really he became a leader when he did that which had not been done. So leadership has everything to do with creativity and thinking outside the box. It is not being confined to the place that you find yourself in. Now, we've got, like I said, so many tools that have shaped the way we think. We've got search engines. All those are very important. But I want to keep reminding you that once you have that information at your disposal, it's important that you consume it properly and use it to aid and to shape your thinking. You know, when you consume that information, allow it also to create fresh ideas, new methods of doing business, new methods of leading, new methods of communicating, new methods that have not been given birth to. Look at what at some point we thought Facebook and WhatsApp, you know, were the peak of, you know, social media, and we thought this was the highest tool that we had for e-messaging or e-communication. But lo and behold, during COVID-19, we saw TikTok. Everyone thought, what is this now? And we had thought Facebook and WhatsApp was enough until TikTok came about. So this tells us that there's so much more that the world still needs to tap into. There's so much more that we still need to explore and find. If you remember, I take you back a little bit, there was Skype and Viber at some point. And we thought, oh, this is it. This is the audio and video communication system or channel that we're going to use. And lo and behold, Zoom came about during COVID-19. We saw Teams taking precedence. So it's all of these new apps, new systems, new products that we've seen are all as a result of creative thinking. Now, not all of it is as a result of the traditional ways of leadership, but it goes without saying that with all these in place, they become what shapes the manner in which we behave. the more we see these ideas coming about, the more we're all inclined to follow whatever is being presented to us. So the question is, would you rather be a consumer and keep following what is presented to you, or would you rather be an innovative leader? I just wanted to point out some of the innovative pacts and innovative, should I say, outputs or products that we've seen within the sphere of e-tech. We've seen Mark's net worth explode to close to 61.2 billion over the last few years. We've seen Elon Musk go 234.5 billion in no time. And all of this is as a result of creativity and thinking. For some of you might know the history of how Elon Musk made it. Look at how, TikTok, Mr. Zhang is a 39-year-old. His net worth is estimated at 44.5 billion. So all of this is all about creative thinking and thinking of other ways of making sure you become the leader in something. We've seen Steve Jobs, I know the late, and how Apple's net worth has just gone, close to 100 billion. We've seen Amazon, we've seen Tesla. We all know these things. But the real question is our leadership style or our leadership way of thinking channeling us towards bringing about new products, new ideas, new methods, new ways of thinking, or we've allowed ourselves to continue as though it's business as usual. In my conclusion, what I've demonstrated above is basically that there is no definitive definition of who a leader is. But what I've been able to pick up as I was preparing for this is that when we become creative and we merge that with including everyone around us in making that creative juice come alive, what then happens is that automatically innovation comes to play, and then boom, a product that we've never heard of trends and is consumed by everyone. And so would you rather be a consumer leader, or you want to be an innovative leader that brings about new ideas? Thank you so much. And I really hope I was audible enough. And I see you guys are quiet, and I just hope that I was audible enough, and I hope I can clarify. We can also have a conversation around this, because this, like I said, is my own creative way of looking at things. I could be wrong, but I mean, we have seen the results of creative leadership and what it means. And some would even argue that the innovators seem to control the world. Look at what happened last year, October, when WhatsApp went on some sort of downturn. I think it crashed or something in October, and the world almost came to a standstill. It tells you that creative thinkers, who in turn become creative leaders, have the power to end up controlling the world. So the question is, would you rather be a normal leader, or would you rather be a creative leader? Thank you very much, and God bless you.
I'm standing up for Mazwe. Wow, Precious, that was powerful. That was really powerful. I think our colleagues listening took a lot of that energy you are sharing, and I'm sure there are many questions that and ideas that might pop now as a response to what you were saying. Yeah. I see a question in the chat from Professor Mangis, where he asks, in the SADC, SADC, I assume, region, our economy isn't doing so well, and you may want to think that we have the greatest absence of these creative and innovative thinkers. By the way, this region has so many creative and innovative thinkers. Why these thinkers seem to have no space in the politics of SADC region is a question he asks. How best can they, creative and innovative leaders and thinkers, take over the political space so that SADC as a region becomes self-sustaining?
Yeah. Wow. That's a mind-blowing question, because I think that creative thinkers don't really wait for anyone to do it for themselves. We have to go the extra mile to partner and come up with platforms that can foster creative thinking and allow for resources to be pulled together to allow for people to emerge. Because you see, I think the challenge with Africa is that there's not much resources that are actually placed towards making sure that those with these creative ideas are not only nurtured, but they are also allowed to come about. So we tend to be restricted, I think, in resources. And perhaps this should be a wake-up call to us to say, now that we've got these ideas, what is it that we can do? Do we come together? Do we find organizations that are willing to fund and to help us come up with? But what I've seen with creative thinking is that sometimes it doesn't take a lot. Look at how Jeff Bezos started, was this Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, in the garage, you know? So creative thinking sometimes is not just limited to the resources that you have. Sometimes it's launching in bits and pieces that idea, making sure obviously you safeguard it against vouchers, because also it's your intellectual property at the end of the day. So I think ideally we need to be saying as leaders in this platform who are willing to come together, who are the funders or donors or people that are willing to come together and come up with ways in which we can foster these, nurture these, and get them also the necessary education, because some of them simply need to go to an art school to discover more of what they can do. But you see, the challenge we have is that our education system is cut and dry. You know, it's either you're a scientist, if you're not, you're an art student. But even so, we are restricted in so far as what is taught and what is allowed and what is not. So there's also a need to have creative thinkers that think beyond what we've been exposed to, and then also bring these young people together, not just young, everyone else that has a much more creative idea, and allow them, you know, to express themselves or bring it out so that it can also be possibly funded or, you know, executed outside, you know, their own personal space.
Colleagues, Dr. Chamisa, Mangisa, would you like to bring your voice into your question to share your thoughts on what you think might be additional to what Precious has shared as to how we bring these leaders into the SADC region?
Hi, Mr. Young.
Go for it, Professor Mangisa.
Yes, I would love to be a professor, Mr. Young. I am not yet a professor. But a great response from Advocate Gondwe, and a very insightful presentation, of course, very powerful. As Professor Mazwe would always say, that we learn, unlearn, and relearn as the journey, you know, the leadership journey continues, you know, to move forward or, you know, take us forward into the future. There is what is called intellectual stimulation. You know, that's being part of what is termed transformational leadership. And the reason why I was asking this question precisely because of what I've observed within the SADC region, that, you know, as, you know, political leaders ascend the ladder, you know, to become presidents and so forth and so forth. And it's very practical within, you know, the South African society that in a way of destimulating our communities so that they continue to vote for those who are in power, what they would do, or what's currently happening in South Africa. We give, you know, the young kids who are unable to find work, we give them grants, you know, so that they see us as political leaders to be empowering them in giving them grants because they're unemployed, not realizing that indeed that becomes destimulating in as far as their thinking is concerned. Now, you know, you can cut and paste this, which is happening in South Africa. You go to Swaziland, you probably find the same thing. You go to Zimbabwe, you probably find the same thing. And that's why I was asking this question, to say, it is not that there's absence of these people who are, you know, who can be creative and innovative thinkers, but as young as they are, we make them, you know, to see us as political leaders, to be the people who can make them to be what they want to be, while we are not giving them the space to be as innovative as they can be. So that is why I was asking this question, to say we are not giving them the space. But I hear what you know, Advocate Gondwe is saying, is that they need to grab the opportunity. They need to create that space for them, and not wanting to wait for handouts, for resources, you know, for them to begin to be creative thinkers. That's my addition here, Mr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Mangis. I see another comment in the chat from Aubrey Letsa. Aubrey, do you want to bring your voice into the meeting? I would prefer that you speak your question than me reading it.
Good evening, Mr. Young. Yeah, I was actually thinking that you're just gonna go ahead and ask on my behalf. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity, and good evening once again to everyone. Good evening, Advocate. So my question is, because I heard when you were speaking, unfortunately I joined late, but I heard that you you know, spoke a little bit on the quality of education in South Africa. And my question just with regards to that is, what do you think, you know, are practical measures, or, you know, what kind of reformations do you think are necessary, or they can be brought to sort of transform the outlook of education in South Africa, especially the looking at the public education? Yeah, I would just like to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. You know, I'm in Botswana, and that's the same challenge. And this conversation has been going on for a very long time, because for instance, the stats in Botswana just indicate that most graduates are not employable. In short, they're not able to get the jobs that they've gone to school for. So the question becomes, do they have the necessary skills? Have they been trained right? Does it mean the basic education to a certain extent might not necessarily be relevant to them now? The question, I think, the real truth about this is that I think that from time to time, the education system must be revisited. I've lived in the UK and I see what they do with young people. You've seen soccer schools. For instance, in the UK, you can take your child to a soccer school where they will not only be trained academically, but they're also given an opportunity to train in other athletics. So we tend to have the academic side of things in check, but we really don't have enough on the practical, much more training that will foster creative thinking. So I personally, and this is my personal view and thought, well stated, out of creativity, I think that our syllabuses must be revisited. Our courses, the manner in which our students are taught, is it working for us? Is this really relevant for us? See, because you have to match the real world vis-a-vis what you're teaching your children. Are they capable of being employable? Can they function in a fully fledged, competitive, global village? You know, if you train someone to function within a village, what happens if they have to go global? What happens if they have to deal with people with different cultures? What happens if we are confronted with COVID-19? No one was ever ready to deal with COVID-19. None of our leaders was ever ready to even know what to do. And I think that those that also came to our aid were creative thinkers. And politically so, most of our political leaders were not really equipped to deal with this thing. They had to rely on creative leadership to find solutions to deal with COVID-19. And that exposed leadership. It exposed us because it meant that we were never ready to even think of the what ifs and to foster an education system that allows for people to think of the worst case scenario towards life, you know, because creative leadership is all about problem solving. Leaders are problem solvers. So everything about creativity means if something goes wrong, how would we react to it? How would we handle it? What systems are they in place that could deal with this? I remember at some point on social media, again, Bill Gates was being castigated for saying that, well, they say apparently he had long warned the Americans that a peril or a pandemic such as this one was coming, and he had been ignored, you see? Because when we lack people that think creatively, we risk, you know, getting consumed when we are confronted with challenges and there's no one that is equipped to deal with it. So I say, from the very first day that my child goes to school in standard 1 or grade 1, or is it reception? I don't know what you call it on the other side. They should be equipped and be allowed to think creatively. See, it shouldn't all be expected that every child should pass mathematics. What if they're so good in arts and that's what we should allow them to become? And what if they would be so good at that and they'll change the world? But the education system has been set in such a manner that you have to pass your math. And there's nothing wrong with education. Pass your math, pass your sciences. If you've got English and you don't have a science subject, already the manner in which the system has been designed, it's as though there's something wrong with you. Whereas other countries allow for children to go to an art school from day one. So there's a system and a way in which someone's, in fact, even their intellect is sort of assessed to determine whether or not they're an arts person or a science person. So from day one, they are equipped in that light, you know. So we need to also push towards the agenda of making sure the manner in which our educational facilities are structured, the syllabus is being taught, are constantly being reviewed. And the questions should be asked to everyone else of us to contribute towards that sort of reform. I don't know if I've answered you, but that is my thinking.
Thank you. If I could support Precious in what she's just said. What's clear is everything is changing faster and faster, and that the transformation age has dawned. And as a result, we must make sure that every human being's curiosity, in addition to their creativity, their curiosity is stimulated, but supported so that they can access and participate in the new information possible to create value for mankind. And I think this is where no syllabus will be able to keep up. No syllabus will be able to definitively provide man with the knowledge or experience or skills required to live in this transformation age. So I think I want to support you and say that curiosity is a key one. But what we're also seeing now is that science and reason is not enough. We need to make sure that people's intuition and their imagination is allowed to find the answers so that they might create value for themselves, their families, and as you put it so lovely, Precious, monetize those imaginative, intuitive ideas in order that they can participate in the economy. I'll leave there and now ask for other questions. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any new comments. Please, colleagues, leaders, I invite you to bring your voice to this discussion, dialogue, and offer us gifts, if it's not a question, a gift of your insight.
Can I just hop into there?
Yes, please do.
Yes. I have sort of a question, a poser, as to what comes first or what must come first between good, considerate, kind, moral, upright, ethical, democratic, people-derived, people-based, and people-oriented public leadership, and solidly built, tried and tested, democratic, also people-derived, people-based, and people-oriented public governance and administration systems, structures, institutions, principles, practices, morals, ethics, values, visions, traditions, and cultures. Is it good public leaders whom we should seek first, or should we seek first to put into place good public governance and administration systems, structures, and other things into place? Why I'm asking this question is that actually I have an example of the country where I come from. I mean, Eswatini, but I come from Zimbabwe. I'm sure you all know the gentleman called Strive Masiwa, who is one Zimbabwean billionaire staying in the UK now. This guy was just a telecoms technician at the Zimbabwe Post and Telecommunications Corporation by that time, who was full of ideas and innovation to start a mobile cell phone network in Zimbabwe. He made an application to be given a license to start this, but because of bad politics, he took about 5 years. After having put infrastructure in place at great cost throughout the country, he was denied the license, or they were procrastinating giving him the license to operate for more than 5 years, until one, Dr. Joshua Mkabu was acting president. Then when he was acting president, he decided that he has to give this guy a license, and he gave him a license. And the then Minister of Post and Telecommunication tried to cancel it, and he threatened to the president, then Robert Mugabe, to say, if you cancel this guy's license, I am resigning from government. And so that is how Strive Masiwa ended up with a license to operate Econnect Wireless. From a humble telecommunications technician with innovative leadership skills in business and ideas, he is now a billionaire because of one politician amongst the politicians who were there at the time who decided that they were being unfair to this guy. One good political leader called Joshua Mkabu decided to give this guy a license against all odds and against all other politicians when he was acting president. So you can say that if Joshua Mkabu had not given Strive Masiyiwa that license, Strive Masiyiwa would not be the innovative billionaire that everyone knows him to be, the innovative business leader that we know him to be. And yet he was enabled by an innovative political leader who saw beyond political affiliations, who saw beyond tribalism, favoritism, or whatever, who looked at Strive Masiyiwa as an innovator who was there to better the lives of Zimbabweans. Now he's bettering the lives of everybody else where his businesses are operating as a business leader. So my question is, what comes first? Is it good leadership institutions, or is it good leaders that give birth to good leadership institutions, or is it good leadership institutions that give rise to good leaders? In that regard, I want to just read you a small thing that was said by, we know Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett became a billionaire, and the one Prof. Uji Chang, who is a Cambridge economist, quoted him in his book, which is called 23 Things They Don't Tell You About Capitalism. He quoted Warren Buffett saying this, that was in 1995. He said, I personally think that society is responsible for a very significant percentage of what I have earned. If you stick me down in the middle of Bangladesh or Peru or someplace, you will find out how much this talent is going to produce in the wrong kind of soil. I will be struggling 30 years later. I work in a market system that happens to reward what I do very well, disproportionately well. It meant that even though Warren Buffett realized he was an innovative business leader, he also realized the importance of the environment in which his leadership was going to operate. If it was a permissive environment, he would do wonders. But if the environment in which his leadership, whether it's in business, innovation, technology, if the environment did not permit or was not permissive, he was still going to be struggling 30 years later on. So my question is, leaders, what comes first? Good leaders or good leadership institutions, especially on the public governance administration frontier? What comes first, or what should come first? It sounds like a chicken and egg question, and maybe we should dissect it, because some of the things that we are talking about here, we referred to that, okay, kids must do this, but in what environment are they able to do that? If the environment is disinhibiting, if the environment is not allowing them to do what they could do with their leadership talents and skills and innovations, will they be able to do it? I can tell you for one, if that politician had not allowed Strive to do that, he would not be where he is today. And Warren Buffett just confirmed that if he was stuck in Peru or Bangladesh, he wouldn't be what he is today, but he was in an environment that happened to reward what he did very well. In fact, he said disproportionately well. Thank you, my leaders.
Advocate Precious Gondwe, do you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And I think I remember the history of Strive Masiyiwa. Do you know that he actually got his license in Botswana with Mascom before he actually got his big break in Zimbabwe? I don't know if Mr. Sibanda is actually aware of that. So Mascom, I think, started in Botswana. He actually got his licensing in Botswana before he got it in Zimbabwe. So my learning from that is the fact that if one side seems to be very difficult to penetrate, you have to look outside the box. In short, he had to find other way. See, a creative thinker cannot be stopped. He had to find another way to start. I know even in Botswana, he was the first and he had to partner with someone, and he had not been given full rights. I think he had been given a trial license or something like that, but he was allowed to start trading, because I'm told, actually the last time he was in Botswana, he did say this is where he did his groundbreaking for, his tech giant company. So creative thinkers also must look beyond the boundaries, because whether we like it or not, our countries, our politicians sometimes are not alive to creative thinking. Like I said earlier, they are not equipped even to handle creative thinkers, because, creative thinkers are, look at Elon Musk. Sometimes he's misunderstood. People think he flexes his muscle because he's made it, but the guy is enjoying the fruits of his creativity, whether we like it or not. And this is a guy who was born in South Africa, but listen, he did not confine himself to South Africa. He could have chosen to live there, but he decided, listen, maybe I should try elsewhere. All I'm saying is that much as we have that hurdle, Mr. Sibanda, and I understand the challenges that we sometimes have, depending on the country we are, depending on the leadership in place, I think that creative thinkers are like water. So they will penetrate even those areas we think they are closed. What is important is to never stop dreaming, because I think even Strive, if he had stopped and he had given up, he wouldn't have made it eventually. So my thinking is that much as we have to make all these considerations about the institutions that we find ourselves in, and the challenges we find ourselves, whether it's a political institution, whether it's an institution that must foster creative leadership or creative thinkers, if those are not alive, we must push the agenda of going beyond where we find ourselves in. Because what is not received in Botswana might be received in Swaziland or elsewhere. So we have to also, as thinkers, think beyond just the institution that is depriving us of maybe licensing or the support we need, but we must look into other ways of actually finding a way. There's always a way, even when there's a wall, some people will start digging, downwards until they find a way out. I heard in Robben Island, some people attempted to escape, even though it was difficult. But all I'm saying is that I understand the challenges, and I'm hoping that as we begin to really put into action this phenomenon on creative leadership, even our leaders will come alive to the fact that they need to support our creative thoughts, our creative ideas. They need to fund them. And if they don't, we have to find other ways to break barriers. And I hope that helps you, Mr. Sibanda.
Thank you, colleagues. That was a most informative and creative session. The innovation is flowing. I'd like to ask you to all turn on your cameras so that I can take a photo and send it to Mazwe of all of you who've been here to listen to this inspiring speaker. Mazwe, I see you are still on the call. I'm going to give you the final voice to say goodnight to everybody. But this has been most innovative, most inspiring. And I like her final parting point that says, no borders. Innovation has no borders for leaders. Is everybody's cameras on? Have you enabled your camera? Mazwe, I'm handing it to you to say goodnight.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, my brother Andre. Thank you so much. Innovation par excellence. And we've learned a lot tonight, despite the challenges of load shedding stage 5. Some of us in the dark, and thank you so much. And that's exactly what we call emergent leadership. That leadership emerges. You may plan things, you may put strategy, you may put everything together, especially in times of crisis and uncertainty, and then there will be things that will emerge out of it, and that's what exactly happened tonight. But thank you so much, my brother Andrew. That's why we always say this is a community of leaders. We are all leaders here. And my sister Precious, oh my, when I was just introducing you and ESCOM started kicking me out, but thank you so much, my sister. I really appreciate. We've learned so much. We've got the slides, we've got the recording. We'll send to our colleagues, we'll send it to you as well. And also the YouTube will be there. So yeah, we spread the wings. So it's the let the journey begins. As we say here, leadership, it's a journey. So thank you so much for availing yourself. I know how busy you are, and I know how busy you are, and I know what kind of sacrifice you've really put in accommodating us. So to everyone who joined us tonight, especially those who joined us for the first time, thank you so much, and we hope to see you next week, Wednesday. We meet every Wednesdays here, and you understand now what exactly make us every Wednesday converge here. And we're talking about very, very busy people here. And obviously, I don't want to mention names and what people are doing, but I know myself that we've got the platform of very busy people from all angles and from all industries. So we always appreciate when we meet here. We learn from each other. As I said, we correct each other, we admonish each other as leaders. We've got to do that in a safe space like this so we can encourage each other. So thank you so much. We will meet again next week, Wednesday, with another powerful speaker. Obviously, we will let you know who will be coming next week. But thank once more to our speaker for tonight, Advocate Precious Gondwe. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The session is adjourned now till we meet again next week, Wednesday. God bless you and thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good night, colleagues. Thank you, Program Director. Thank you.
Recording stopped.